allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, members of the board. We're going to have a roll call, and I think they'll all be here with the exception of Mr. Lindemann. We'll find out.
Okay. Mr. Ramos?
Here.
Mr. Lindemann? Mr. Sabal?
Here.
Dr. Gomez?
Here.
Mr. Bereen?
Here. And let the record show that Mr. Lindemann is the fact that he's not here is that he's got some official business he needed to take care of. So we'll have that for the record. Gonna preface the agenda just for a minute, members of the board, just so that you know, we've got some items on there that don't have anything to do with the main purpose for being here this morning, which is to discuss the state board action that was taken on Tuesday. But in order to minimize and to have the least possible contact as possible, we've got some items on the agenda that we feel, and the administration feels, that they would like to get out of the way before the next board meeting. So if you'll indulge us on that, we will go through these as quickly as possible, and then we will get to the important part of the agenda. And prior to that, I want to say that we are extremely grateful and is that the conference call? Is that
Someone's touching the mic on their phone.
Oh, okay. We want to, first of all, the reason we're here again this morning is, as we had promised last time, that any time we had any information that we should share with you, especially the importance of graduation, but that is of an extreme importance. However, there's some other issues that Mrs. Samaniego is going to get into when we get to that part of the meeting. But I want to thank members of the board for your being available, and also the members of the community for all the support and cooperation that we've gotten from them during these very trying times. So we will get to that item as quickly as possible, but let's get some of this other routine business out of the way. And with that, I'll turn that over to Mrs. Samaniego on action item 2. Members of the board, do you have your agendas available there?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Item 2, A, discussion action on the approval of certified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, we have 2 teachers that we're presenting and making a notation that these are for the 2021 school year.
Okay, and those are as listed there. I'll entertain a motion for those 2 hires, members of the board.
So moved.
By Mr. Ramos, second by, I think, Dr. Gomez.
Dr. Ed.
All right. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Item 2B, discussion action on the approval of classified hires. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, and also these are for, the first one is for next year, 2021, and the second person there, it will be replacing a person that's going to be retiring from the district, who we are also approving her new retirement date in the next few the next section.
Let's come back to that one,
Okay.
because sine qua non.
Yes.
We got to do the other one first. So let's come back to that. Be sure you remind me to come back to that.
So we'll come back to item B.
All right, so we'll come back to item B, and we'll move on to item 2C, which is discussion action on the approval of certified retirements and resignations. Ms. Samaniego.
As presented, we have 3 resignations for effective at the end of this school year, and then we have 3 retirements for next year.
We have some pretty important and some outstanding employees there, and I think it would I think it merits mentioning the names of Dean Ibanez, Albert Young, Maria Rea, Jaime Tadeo, Charles Casey Hoyak, and Jana Salchow. That's quite a loss in one
It
in
is.
one shot.
It is, and
to
for
the
this
district.
year, definitely a loss, and for next year, it'll even be a bigger loss. These teachers that are retiring have been with us for many, many years, and it'll be a big loss to the district.
Okay, members of the board, I'll entertain a motion to approve the certified retirements and resignations
So move.
by Mr. Sabal. Second,
Second.
by Dr. Gomez. Any discussion? Roll call.
Yes.
Excuse me,
No.
Dr. Gomez, go ahead.
Okay, have the contracts gone out?
No, sir.
Okay, so then why do these people, Ibanez, Hoyak, and Salchow, have to submit a letter of resignation if they don't have a contract for next year?
It is just a kind of a protocol. If they know they're not going to be returning to our district, they could either submit a letter of resignation, or let's say when we issue them their contract, and if they don't sign it within the time frame allotted, then basically it becomes null and void. Then that vacancy becomes available, right? But these individuals,
Yeah.
for our purposes, it really helps us to try to gauge those vacancies ahead of time. If that makes sense to you.
I don't know, well, to me, the word resignation doesn't make sense. We can just say, Mr. Ibanez and Mr. Hoyak and Ms. Salchow will not be renewing the contract. That makes
Well,
a little bit sense. Resignation to me is like they're resigning from something that already exists.
well, they're resigning from their contract here, and if we were to say not renewing their contract, well, we did. We planned on renewing their contract, and we provided the list to you all. But they themselves are letting us know ahead of time before receiving their contract that they will not, that they are resigning at the end of this year's contract.
Okay, just a matter of when.
Yes, just
No problem.
yes. Mhm.
Okay, and Dr. Ed, also, Ms. Samaniego was absolutely right. By doing that, it's an advantage to the district that they are already acknowledging that they won't be back officially, so that the district can actively be recruiting for that job, knowing that the board's already acted on that. Okay, thanks for the comment. Any further discussion? We have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
We have the motion on the floor.
Yes.
Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabay?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Barine?
Yes. Item 2D, discussion action on the approval of classified retirement and resignation. I think we can take those all together with the exception, I think that we need to have the proper language for Joe Wright. She's not rescinding it, she's extending it. In other words, she's not rescinding because if she were, then we'd have to do it separately. She's not rescinding her retirement. She is coming, her retirement date, she's actually going to be here a little bit longer than she had given us an established date prior. So what we are doing is extending it. So I just want to make sure the board's clear on that for the record too. So it's not a rescission, it's an extension. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve
So move.
by Mr. Sabal.
Second.
Is that Dr. Ed?
Mr. Ramos.
Mr. Ramos?
Mr. Ramos, second by Mr. Ramos. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabay?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Barine?
Yes. Item E, discussion action on the approval of donation.
We're going to go
Mr.
back
Barine?
to B. We're going to go back to B.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, exactly. All right, so I'll entertain a motion now to approve item 2B, because now we do have the effective resignation, and so I'll entertain a motion to approve
So move.
by Mr. Sabal. Second,
Second.
Mr. Ramos?
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bermain?
Yes. Now we'll go to action item
E.
2E, discussion action on approval of donations received for Douglas Unified School District number 27. Ms. Samaniego.
Yes, as presented, RBMS will be receiving $500 for the 2020 National Youth Tobacco Survey that was performed by them, by our students, and donation of $2,010 from the Legacy Foundation to Sarah Marley, to actually preschool class Mrs. Vasquez, and the 100 backpacks that were already provided to Douglas High School from Plasma, CLS.
Entertain a motion to approve. Motion
I
to,
move that we approve.
that's Dr. Ed. Second,
Dr.
Second.
Oh, Mr.
Mr.
Ramos.
Ramos?
any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bermain?
Yes. Item F, discussion action on the approval of the facility use agreement between Douglas Unified School District 27 and Chiricahua Community Health Centers Incorporated for the Ronald McDonald Care Mobile to provide on-site dental services for Douglas High School students. Well, first of all, let me just defer to Ms. Samaniego.
This is the facility use agreement that we brought to the board last month, and it was approved, and this is where dental services were going to be provided to Douglas High School students on site. So it's that same agreement. However, the reason we're bringing it back to you, because there was a change in the wording and specifically stating, let me get to it. It says there was a change to the wording from indemnification to mutual indemnification, Section 5. No other changes were made, and our DUSD attorney reviewed the agreement again, and this was something that was an oversight when we brought it to you. And what that means is how that changes things, or I just want to make sure that the board knows that this is where each party cedes to agree to hold harmless the other party against certain losses for a breach of contract. This means loss or damage sits where it falls, regardless of whose fault it is.
Okay, very good. And also, since we're on that, and we had a lengthy discussion when that was actually presented to the board, but there's some other issues there that I think that I discussed with you, Mr. Soto, afterwards, and that's whether there'll be any use of power and any other utilities from the district. And also, I think that with the statute and the policy, they have to come up with the $1 million insurance indemnification, but that's also part of and also the $250 use, deposit. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve that based on the recommendation from the attorney. Members of the board?
So moved.
Mr. Sabal?
Is that your second?
Second.
Mr. Ramos?
Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bermain?
Yes. Item G, discussion action on the renewal approval of the Memorandum of Understanding for the Arizona Health Zone University Arizona Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, Cooperative Extension, Cochise County, and DUSD 27. Ms. Samaniego.
This MOU is, it's a 5-year renewal MOU, and what it does, it provides behaviorally focused, evidence-based nutrition education and obesity prevention services to our students. And there is no cost to DUSD, and so it is just the renewal.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. So moved.
Mr. Sabal, and then how about a second from you, Mr. Ramos?
Okay, second.
Okay, so it's a motion by Mr. Sabal, second by Mr. Ramos. Roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Berme?
Yes. Item H, discussion action if needed regarding school closure update and all related issues and ramifications of such, as well as items and issues discussed at the Arizona State Board of Education meeting held on March 31st, 2020, which was this last Tuesday. And just to kind of frame it for the board and what our involvement here this morning, board members, is, if you recall that at the last meeting we discussed what the possibilities were. We had already passed one of the phases, which was moot because we had gone past that deadline on one of the possibilities that was an edict by the governor and the legislation. And actually, so it moved us to, and as I said at that time, we would need to know exactly what phase or what option we were in to know how to proceed. And the option we're in now is part of the legislation, which was if the statewide closure is not lifted before the scheduled end of the public schools 2019-20 posted school calendar year, the public schools shall continue offering general education opportunities as determined by the public school as prescribed in paragraph 2 of this subsection. Now, that's the one we're in now. And in also the next part of that statute, as I also mentioned at that time, was that it would go to the state board, which it did, because it said in number 12 of that legislation, the State Board of Education shall adopt rules for the graduation of public school students from high school for the 2019-2020 school year. And they did that. The state board did that Tuesday, and that's why we're here today now, because we know as of Tuesday exactly what the board's responsibility is as recommended by the administration. I want to just quickly point out that the school is closed as far as the physical plant is concerned. But as Mrs. Samaniego will give you all of the details in a moment, that doesn't mean that the educational process is still going. And so what we're going to do here this morning, members of the board, is we're going to adopt, according to what happened at the state board meeting, because they gave by action under their rule, which is R72-302.11, here's what they voted on, and here's how it affects us. And here's exactly what they voted on. It said that they prohibit local education agencies from withholding diplomas or credit from students solely due to the closures. LEAs will retain discretion as to if a student should receive a high school diploma or academic credit, but lost instruction time due to a school closure is not permissible as the sole reason to not issue a diploma or academic credit. And that academic credit also is going to be a prominent issue also with some of the underclassmen. And number 2 of that action they took, so that members of the board, you're well informed, it says allow local education associations to base decisions whether to issue academic credit or a high school diploma on the educational opportunities offered during the school closure. Educational opportunities may include independent study or online instruction, but LEAs have the discretion to determine the types of educational opportunities and how to offer them. And I'll let Mrs. Samaniego get into the rest of that, but basically what that says is that the local governing boards are going to determine on recommendation, and I'll tell you that Mrs. Samaniego and her staff are really, really to be commended on all of the work that they're doing this closure in this hard time. And I know that she has a recommendation, and I want to do that today, members of the board, so that we put closure to this, so that now, after this meeting, all the parents, the community, and especially the students know exactly what's going to be expected of them from graduation. And then before I turn it over to her, I just want to also point out that it's important to note that although we're focused on senior graduation, we still have all of the criteria that needs to be met in the statute and the rules and regulations that are promulgated by the state board as to promotion from third grade promotion from one class level to the other. And also, we can't forget the promotion from 8th grade to high school. So all of that has to be taken into consideration. And I just wanted to give you that background information before Ms. Samaniego got into the details with which she and her staff have been diligently working with. So with that, Ms. Samaniego, you go ahead and tell us now what you're going to do as a result of the things that were just mentioned.
Okay. So I'm going to break it down so that our parents and our community really understand what our State Board of Education voted on. So number one, as Mr. Bahrain explained, the State Board of Education has made a decision that made a decision which will allow us to decide how we're going to continue off and finish off the school year. As our governor closed our schools for the rest of the school year, we have two options. Option number one is only if we were not able to provide extended learning opportunities or optional educational opportunities during the school closure time. That really is for probably more rural districts than Douglas. So if we were not able to provide educational opportunities, then we could make a decision to consider everything that we've done up to Q3, which was before the school closure, and call it a year. By doing so, by taking all the way to Q3, we would be affecting currently about 80 seniors. And I'm just talking about seniors right now. So the other option would be to continue providing educational opportunities during the school closure via online distance learning and in combination with our printed paper packet resources that are extended learning opportunities for all of our students, not just high school students. So our recommendation, per discussion with my leadership team and all of our admin, is to continue doing what we started 2 weeks ago, which was to provide the educational opportunities via our online distance platform that we had already presented to you last week, I believe, and allow our students to continue learning at home as best as they can under the circumstances. By doing so, this recommendation is will allow all of our students to promote to the next grade level. This is including 5th grade to 6th grade, 8th grade to 9th grade, and obviously allow our graduating seniors who were at risk right before the school closure to have an opportunity to complete their graduation requirements as set by us in Douglas High School, and allow them the opportunity to complete and possibly graduate. I'll go into more details specifically on Douglas High School and what their situation looks like, but I'm just going to give my recommendation as a superintendent that we continue providing educational opportunities during Q4 via our distance learning platform and paper packets, which will allow all students from pre-K to 12th grade to continue their studies. Okay, that's one.
Okay, can we
okay.
stop? Can we
Yes.
just stop there for a minute for clarification? Because I want to make sure the board understands, and especially the public and all of the affected families and students. When you mentioned the third quarter, first of all, how many seniors do we have?
Okay, we have 343 seniors.
There's 343, and you said, you mentioned that it would, if you ended at the end of the third quarter, that all of those seniors will have met the graduation criteria, with the exception maybe of 80.
Yes.
So board members, so that you understand this, that if we adopt this recommendation, we're saying that the number minus the 80 that are in jeopardy now of not passing, and I think that's what she meant, is that they're in a very precarious situation because they don't know whether they would have passed or not. That we accept the recommendation for the third quarter of all those students affected, and then for the fourth quarter, we allow the 80 to continue and give them an opportunity to meet the criteria so that they can graduate as well. Is that what you're saying?
No, what my recommendation is that we continue our distance learning platform and educational opportunities for all students pre-K-12 during fourth quarter, as we had started. So this wouldn't just be for the 80 students that are at risk of graduation. We would continue offering the same educational opportunities for all students.
Right, but I focused in
Yes.
on those
By
seniors.
doing so, these 80 students that were at risk would have the opportunity, if they do the work that's assigned and are committed to finishing off this quarter, they will have a possibility of graduation. If we wouldn't do this, then those 80 students would not be graduating.
So then that the threshold of the third quarter is going to not to be considered.
No, we're just going
Okay.
to continue as we were in school, obviously via a different learning platform.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Ramos.
Yes, I have a question here for Superintendent Samaniego. These 80 students that are at risk, will they be getting the same assistance to help them achieve their grades for them to graduate?
Are they receiving the same assistance
Yes.
as what, Mr. Ramos? Compared to what?
Compared to them being in the classroom, will the teachers be able to help them with the criteria that they don't understand and how to understand how to complete it?
Yes, and I will be able to, if you want me to answer that question in detail, I can go into it when I totally discuss Douglas High School by itself and what they are doing in order to service the needs of the kids. It's not the same. I want to make sure that we all understand, that our parents understand, that the community understands, that the instruction being provided right now is definitely not the same instruction as being in the classroom with their teachers. We all have to understand that. And we all have to understand that we are instructing very differently than what we've been used to. And our students are learning via a different mode as well. But I can go into that I can go into that question and answer in detail when I review Douglas High School.
You know, Mr. Ramos, I didn't want to confuse the issue by bringing up those 80 students, but Ms. Samaniego mentioned them, and I knew exactly what she was talking about. And the point is that if we were to stop at the end of the third quarter, and she's going to get into this now, and I just want to make this clear, but she's not saying that. She's saying we're going on as usual, and that will allow those 80 students that are at risk or in jeopardy of not graduating, give them an opportunity, as well as the other ones that have already probably met all of the criteria. So
Yes.
school will continue as best we can present it. And of
Yes.
course, this certainly isn't an ideal situation. But,
No, it's not.
But it's going to meet the requirements, and we've got to do this in order to accommodate all of our students. And I think that the fact that she covered, that if the motion is made the way she's recommending it, that it's all encompassing, which means that all of the students will be promoted as if they were in school, and that their grades will be viewed and reviewed and evaluated at the end of the year just like they normally would be.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, so the motion would be, if you recommend it, we're not going to talk about the high school right now, that we covered all of the grade levels. We covered
Yes,
all the grade
that
levels.
we
Eighth grade
continue.
to high school, that's covered.
Pre-K to 12, we would continue our educational opportunities during the school closure as normal.
Okay. Okay, members of the board, are there any questions regarding that before she specifically gets to the high school? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Samaniego.
Okay. So with that being said, the other information that I'm going to just talk about the three main points that were discussed at the board, State Board of Education, and then I'll go into detail with
Fine.
high school, middle school, and elementary. So the other thing that was voted upon at the board meeting was that we as a district have to fill out an attestation form stating, and that has to be filled out by me and signed by me. That form is due April 15th. I've already taken care of it. It's submitted. And what it is a document attesting that we are continuing to provide educational opportunities as best as we can. State Board of Education, ADE, are very aware of the circumstances across the state and how different each district's capabilities are in regards to providing one-on-one technology devices, internet, or paper or pencil packets. So they are very aware of everybody's situation, and they cannot, in their right mind, mandate that we all provide online learning because we don't have the capabilities. So on this form, I've just submitted and in detail as to what all of our grade levels are doing, what all of our schools are doing, how we are communicating with our teachers, how the teachers are communicating with students, what are they communicating about, and what is our learning platform. So that has already been submitted by me that day that the board issued and voted. So that's already done. And also, we know that due to the closure and cancellation of state assessments, all of our schools will end up with a school letter grade, with the same school letter grade that they received in 2018-19 school year for the 19-20 school year. So I know many of our schools were working, all of our schools were working really, really hard this year to improve that letter grade. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, they will have to keep their 18-19 school letter grade. So those are the three things that were heavily discussed and that apply to us right now, is continuing the learning platform during quarter 4, filling out our attestation form, and letting us know that the 18-19 school year letter grade will be in effect for all of our schools. So I'm going to start with Douglas High School platform and what they are doing. We know that, as mentioned last week, all of our students are being offered distance learning opportunities via Google Classroom or Moodle at the high school. I met with Douglas High School administration yesterday, and as of yesterday, approximately 90% of Douglas High School students are currently engaged in Google Classroom. They have about 21 to 22 students as of yesterday that had reached out to Douglas High School saying they have either no internet or no technology devices, so they will be needing paper packets. That's not a whole lot of kids, 22 kids. The first assignment this week was just from the teachers to make contact with students so that the students could respond, and Douglas High School could have an idea as to which kids were responding via online and which kids weren't. So two lessons a week are being taught for the core classes. One lesson a week is being taught for elective classes. Teachers are recording grades for those lessons that are being given to students. And the high school packets will start, they will be made available starting Monday for those kids if the numbers go up from 2022, then Douglas High School will be prepared for those to have those packets available. The Douglas High School packets will only be available at Douglas High School cafeteria where our food service is providing meals. They will not be available at any of the other sites. We just want to maintain those packets there. Mr. Walker and Douglas High School staff will be providing some guidance via communication to the students as to how those packets will be collected. All that information was already provided and it's on their website, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Mr. Walker is on the phone, so we can, if the board has any questions, we can have him review that. Civics test is still mandated for the high school students, and ECAP is still mandated in order to graduate. And Douglas High School teachers will make sure that those students that are required complete that. The graduation requirement, by going with our option B, will allow those 80 students who were at risk to graduate. Out of the 343 students, that our seniors, they already knew that 17 would not make it. So I do want to inform you of that. 17 students out of that senior class are not going to be able to graduate. And that was even before the school closure. Those 17 students have been notified. Douglas High School counselors have reached out to them. So it was the 80 students who were at risk that we were really concerned about. Mr. Ramos's question was, will those kids be provided the assistance during their distance learning platform? The resources that they're going to be provided, Mr. Ramos, obviously are not going to be the same as having that face-to-face instruction, because the kids are not able to go to tutoring, for example, or go ask the teachers a personal question. But I can guarantee you that even with the distance learning opportunity through Google Classroom or Moodle, teachers will be in communication with the students. Students have that possibility of contacting the teacher via email and asking for help. So that those 80 kids, I can guarantee you, they will try to assist them as much as they can. And in talking to Douglas High School administration yesterday, if these 80 kids do not take advantage of this opportunity, then there's nothing that Douglas High School is going to be able to do. It is really an opportunity. Things are a lot easier right now, being that we have to work minimally and send out work minimally to the students, as we know that we have multiple students in one family from all levels, and we cannot expect with one device at home for a Douglas High School student to be on the computer 6 hours a day, a middle school child to be another 6 hours, and an elementary. So these 80 kids are really should be grateful of this situation and this opportunity, because it's going to be a lot easier for them to make it. So they will have that guidance, Mr. Ramos. The total number of credits that by doing and by continuing our learning during fourth quarter will allow them to have their 3.75 credits for this semester, for a total of 7.5 credits for the academic year if students complete their work. If students don't complete their work, then it's obviously the same thing as not doing the work when you're in school. So we want to make sure that our parents and our students know that this work is not optional. It has to be done in order to receive credit, especially for Douglas High School 9-12 students, and more so for our graduating seniors. There will be, go ahead.
Yes, okay. You and Mr. Brain talked about 80 students at risk, seniors. Now, does that include the 20 that you just mentioned that they wouldn't have? That they were sort of graduated away?
No, 17 students are not being considered part of the 20. Those 17 have already been notified, and there is nothing at this point in one quarter that they could do to graduate.
Okay, but they weren't part of this other 80. They were separate.
Yes, those are separate, yes. So we really want to push these 80 kids to finish so that we could have, I believe it would be a total of about 326 students that would be graduating. No assessments. Yes?
Go ahead,
Mr. Walker.
Oh, Mr. Walker, go ahead. Did I say that number right?
No. Those 80 include those 17.
Oh, it does include. Okay, then I will correct that. Okay.
Okay.
So out of those 80, 17 are the ones that you knew would not be graduating.
Correct.
Okay. At this point, Douglas High School is not going to be offering, there will be no assessments, no quizzes, no CFAs, no finals. Because of the nature of the situation, it is impossible to be able to give a test and say, did students do it, on their own? So everything will be, all their grades will be based on the assignments that are being provided by all of their teachers. No late assignments will be accepted, and this, this does not include the flexibility for our ESS students at Douglas High School. They get an extra week, Mr. Walker, to turn him in? Mr.
all
Walker?
packets
Yes.
that are delivered ESS and those that pick them up at the cafeteria, because we are starting next Monday with packets. They're going to be a week behind everybody else, and they will go Monday to turn in those packets. So when we say no late assignments will be accepted, that is pertaining to the online classes, more or less.
Okay. Oh, good. And last but not least, I've been receiving questions pertaining to how are we going to complete the, graduation for our incoming freshmen. And I'm getting questions from like the charter schools, Loreto, so I want to take this opportunity to also briefly talk about that. What we decided to do, because obviously our schools are going to be closed, and they're closed to the public, and we don't know how bad the situation will get in May or June. So what we're going to do right now, during the week of May 4th, all the counselors, we're going to send information to Loreto and all of our charter schools. We're going to send them the registration information packets. And I will be in contact with the administrators at those schools, or Mr. Walker will, one of us. And they will be responsible for then issuing the information to their students. Okay, before, our counselors would go visit their schools, have these evening meetings, and provide their registration packets to them. However, under the circumstances, we won't be able to do that. So the week of May 4th, again, Loreto and charter schools will be sent the information either by Mr. Walker or one of the counselors. I will follow up with their administrators and provide them the information, as they will have to give out the information to their students. Loreto students, because they are not, they don't have a SACE number, okay? They've never been enrolled in public school. So the rollover of those students does not happen until July 1, when we roll over into the next fiscal year. As of July 1, then they become they become a student that has a SACE number. So the Douglas High School, depending on how the situation is over the summer, they will also have to have, the designated registration dates that we've had every year. Freshman on one day, sophomore on another day, and so forth. Usually, any new student to the district, okay, this is a new student that has never had a SACE number before, has its own date for registration. And so Douglas High School, when the time comes, they will provide that information so that all of the new students know when they're supposed to register. This does not mean that those new students have less of a chance to get classes, or have less of a chance to get the electives that they want, or have less of a chance to get the best classes, so forth. It only means that because they don't have a SACE number, we can't really, and they don't have a SACE number, they don't have an email account yet with the district, so those students will be taken by themselves on one given day, okay? But they will have the information through their schools during the week of May 4th. The week of May 11th, it will be their responsibility to return the pre-registration packets. So we're going to give them about, a week after it's been issued for them to return the packets to us. And that has not been determined yet, right, Mr. Walker, how you're going to take those registration forms?
That has not, you're correct.
Yes.
It has not.
Okay, and we'll talk about that at a later date when we know the situation. Last but not least, pertaining to Douglas High School, is obviously the question that every senior is interested upon, and our parents and our community, because me too, I value the importance of a graduation ceremony. I value the work that all of our kids have done for the last 13 years or more so. They had more years in preschool, is whether we will be able to have a graduation ceremony. At this point, today, I cannot answer that because we don't know how the situation is going to be. We don't know whether the social distancing guidelines are going to be removed or eased up a little bit come June or July. We also know that being able to gather everybody during the summertime, every graduating senior, some may be going early to college, some may be moving out of town. So at this point, we don't have an answer. We will take it week by week, month by month, and more information will be provided, I think, closer to mid-May, end of May, whether that will be possible. Mr. Walker has been talking to Jimena, our student body president, and discussing some possible options for graduation ceremony. But at this point, we know that kids will be getting a diploma. We can guarantee that. If you meet the requirements and graduate, students will be getting a diploma. We just don't know whether it'll be in a ceremony, whether it will be virtual, whether it will have to be postponed months. We don't know that yet. But we're going to do everything that we can to provide that important moment to our students and to our parents.
Okay, we'll let you take a breather there. Let me ask a quick question regarding transcripts or permanent record cards. This probably be for Mr. Walker and of course your team, but what grades are going to be reflected as far as the universities and any technical school or any institution of learning is concerned regarding what grades will be the ones that'll be reflective of the last year, the third, because you mentioned there won't be any testing. So it will have to be the third quarter grades will be the ones that will be the final grade?
No.
Okay, go ahead and
No.
explain that.
I'll start, Mr. Walker, and then you can chime in. The grades,
Okay.
the work that is being submitted by students is going to be graded. So every subject is going to reflect a grade. At the end of the semester, at the end of the quarter, just English will have a grade, math will have a grade, social studies will have a grade, and all students that complete the work will end up having a full transcript for the 4 years that they're at the high school. So just by the virtue of not having assessment doesn't mean that they're not going to have grades. So this is really crucial time for students to take the work seriously because that will be their grade. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
anything you want to add to that?
No.
No.
That's
Okay.
exactly
Yes.
right.
Grades
it
will
would
be taken.
Okay,
Yes, grades will be taken, and it's their third quarter grade plus their fourth quarter grade, and their semester grade goes on the transcript.
okay, very good. That was good for clarification. You know, all this information regarding all of the things that are being done by Mr. Walker and Samaniego and all of her staff and all of our teachers, people need to realize and appreciate all of the work that these people are doing. Our certified staff is they may have thought they were going to be on vacation, but if you can imagine them trying to get all this information out in this instruction and then having to deal with these grades and being constantly available, we really want to thank them. And on behalf of myself, Mr. Ramos, Mr. Lindeman, Dr. Gomez, and Mr. Sabal, we want to thank you, staff, and not only them, but also our certified staff and everybody that's been so diligently working and supporting what's being done here. We're extremely appreciative and know that we're not only appreciative but very. Is that Mr. Anyway, so anyhow, I wanted to get that out. The other thing that I think that's very important is that we now, if Ms. Samaniego, you're finished with your presentation, and then the board has a good idea of what we need to take action regarding what this is going to entail. So, members of the board, before I ask Ms. Samaniego to repeat her recommendation, which will be the motion for the record, that you have any questions or comments? Okay.
Mr. Brain, before we go to the motion, I want to take an opportunity and also just briefly give information on our pre-K 8th instruction and platform, and just reiterate that, again, the assignments are not optional. We want students to learn. We want students to be able to do as much as they can at home because of our pre-K to 8th grade teachers are also working extremely tough hours, long days. They're getting very creative. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nunez so he can just briefly talk about our platform pre-K 8th and make sure that our parents understand that we want the learning to continue. Go ahead, Mr. Nunez.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board, and Mrs. Samaniego. Just briefly, I'll share that I've been in contact with having weekly meetings with the curriculum and instruction team. That's the instructional coaches that have been working very closely with our teachers and our school administrators. And Mrs. Samaniego is right. Right now, I think everybody's working even more so than we already do. And so pre-K to 8th grade, we have a combination of learning experiences. And like Mrs. Samaniego mentioned, the continued education learning opportunities, we have both paper packets as well as distance learning as well. So we have been working closely with our teachers. Our teachers are meeting with our coaches a minimum of once a week, more so sometimes 3 to 5 times a week, virtually or telephone calls. And this includes our school administrators as well. So our paper packets are available at our 4 school sites for pickup. I even get calls from parents and asking, are there more packets? Is it okay if I get a packet that's maybe 1 grade level below or 1 grade level above? And we definitely encourage them to do so. This is pre-K to 8th grade as far as paper packets. And so those packets will continue throughout the course of the school year. And so our teachers and our coaches are already working on the next phase of our packets, and so to directly connect them to what the learning is taking place on our distance learning platform. Our distance learning K-5 consists of practice activities and something we were doing from the beginning of the school year and something that has continued in the school district, and that is using a digital platform called Study Island. And so our students and our teachers are working with that and are sharing the information with all students. And we're focused on 2 reading skills and 2 math skills a week. And our teachers are reaching out sometimes individually to students, working one-on-one with them, and sometimes in a whole classroom setting. We also have a fun activity for our students to do at home, and that's called eSpark. And so that is a really enriching type of activity for all of our students that they can take place, and our teachers are keeping track of that. As far as our middle schools, they're kind of doing something very similar to Douglas High School, and so they are teaching these 2 skills a week in all of our content areas, and that's reading, math, writing, social studies, and science. And they're using the same platform as Douglas High School, and that's Google Classroom, with connecting with students at a minimum, again, once a week. So I just want to give a big shout-out to you all for the support that you're providing us, as well as Mrs. Samaniego for her leadership and for getting our school closure task force in place so that we can do all of these great things that are taking place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nunez.
Is there anything else you wanted to add before we get to the motion?
No, I just want to, again, thank all of our staff, and I can't say how much I appreciate everybody's work, because we are all working literally more than our normal work day. Our work doesn't end, and before the motion goes out, I do want to give out a message to our teachers. I want to tell you that don't stress yourselves. You need to take care of yourselves, your children at home, and reaching out and wanting to do a daily communication with your kids, a daily video, and preparing for your lessons. It is exhausting. And I've heard from, believe it or not, from some spouses of our teachers, and they're very concerned with their wives at home and having to teach kids and having to prepare lessons. So teachers, you are taking direction from curriculum coaches, you are taking direction from your principals. So take it slow to go to end fast. Don't try to be perfect, and don't try to exhaust yourself. We have some minimal guidelines that we're expecting out of you. If you do over and above that, obviously that is on our teachers, but they are working extremely, extremely hard. And so for that, I thank them, but I also want them to take care of themselves as well.
Yeah, very good, and I think the board echoes that. With the motion is going to be your recommendation, and then I'll have you read the recommendation, then I'll ask for a motion regarding the recommendation, and that'll become the motion, and then we'll get a second, and then we'll vote. The motion will be coordinated with the assurances that you've already signed off on. So that'll just complete everything, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So you won't have to do anything. I know that you're swamped, and but this will kind of put that to bed for you, so that you don't have to worry about that again. So again, the motion will be coordinated with the assurances that you've already signed off on, that you sent to the state, correct? All right. Okay, members of the board, now she's going to read her recommendation, which will become the motion, and which will become the policy till the end of the school year, the end of the calendar year. So as per the state board edict. So you want to read that, and then
Yes.
and then I'll entertain a motion to accept that.
Okay. My recommendation would be that our school district continue to provide educational learning opportunities during the school closure to include quarter 4, allowing us to use data or grades collected during the distance learning opportunity for pre-K-12, so that all of our students could receive grades, and specifically allow our seniors to complete graduation requirements.
I'll entertain a motion as per that language, as the motion. Members of the board?
So moved. So moved.
Okay, let's go, motion by Mr. Sabal, second by Mr. Ramos. Is that all right with you, Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Okay, so motion by Sabal, Ramos the second. Any discussion? That's all encompassing, right? That
All
covers
encompassing,
everything. And I'm going to be redundant, but I want to make sure that for the sake of the state requirements, that meets the assurances that Ms. Samaniego signed off on. All right, roll call.
Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Mr. Sabal?
Yes.
Dr. Gomez?
Yes.
Mr. Bereen?
Yes. Thank you very much for having done that, and that's a major accomplishment and a step forward to continuing with what we're doing. However, now, board members, we have some other business that's related, and that's regarding the budget, contracts, and those kinds of things. I just want Ms. Samaniego, and they're all related to the closure, so there's no problem with that. So I want to start off by saying that we need to be aware that the edict by the governor, if you recall, that everyone would be paid and all of the benefits and all those kinds of things would be included for the calendar year. You have to remember we have 12-month employees, so I just want the board to be cognizant that there's going to be some issues that the state is going to have to deal with again, because once we get to the end of the school year, the calendar year, then what's going to become of the 12-month employees regarding how they're going to be paid report to work. Now, the point being that if the virus mandates that the workforce continue to stay home, then they're going to have to redo some legislation, because the way I read this legislation only goes to the end of the calendar year, correct? And so we're looking at, we're doing okay with this budget year, as Mr. Soto has reported previously, but then we're going to look at a very, very thin budget the following year. And so in taking it in order, are you prepping? And I know you haven't had any information. I mean, we're okay up until the end of the calendar year, but as far as the employment, and I'm talking about the 12-month employees, and basically those are classified. So you want to just kind of make some. What's your reaction to that?
The reaction. Oh, okay. I guess first thing is a clarification, because at the beginning it was kind of confusing for me because of the language used. The fiscal year, as everybody knows, ends on June 30th for us, and by using the term calendar year, to me is just December. But just a clarification is the 180 days of instruction for every school district, for us it will end on May 22nd, and I think that's what we're referring about. That legislation is going to have to come out with some wording about what's going to happen to the 12-month employees that we still work after the May 22nd last day of school. We haven't heard anything at all at this point, and like I said before, everything is encumbered at this point. We need to make sure, or we need to wait until the state says if they're going to continue funding 100%, or as you remember, some of the language will say that some districts were choosing to pay 2/3 of the salary to the employees and stuff like that. So at this point, we haven't heard anything from the state what's going to happen after the May 22nd date. But like I told you before, we have already all of the salaries encumbered, so it's just a matter of the funding coming in.
Okay, and that's also information for our employees as well, that they
Correct.
need to be aware that they were covered for the school calendar year, and it wasn't the fiscal year.
Correct.
Okay, then the other clarification is on the budget. I know that you have some deadlines that you need to meet regarding contracts, and we've already approved the contracts for the classroom teachers for next year, correct? I mean,
Yes.
you've got all those. And I know you and I have discussed it, you have no qualms, or you don't have any concerns regarding issuance of those, and from the date they're issued, of course, they have the 30 days and all those requirements that are inherent to that. The other thing is that we need, and because of the situation, we need to discuss again where we are as far as contracts and what you're looking at, Mr. Soto. And we know that they're, let's say, guaranteed by legislation, the 5%.
Correct.
We have talked, and I think the board has always concurred with those statements, that the 5% is basically a given, and you have the money to cover that.
Correct.
We as a board would like to look at 6%. We would like to look at 7%. We would like to look at anything that you can do. And the reason I say that, and it's important, board members, is because if we're going to be looking at a very austere budget for next year, we should do everything possible for our staff, and I mean everybody, teachers. The teachers are the ones that have been left behind all these years, actually. But we should do what we can for everybody this year, because it's going to be pretty difficult next year. So, having said that, you can cover for the contracts now. We know you can cover 5.
Correct.
You're looking at 6, and if you could by some miracle come up with 7, then you do that, knowing the funds that you have. Then we also want to talk about, because things are not normal. We don't have the interaction with staff like we do. So we need to take the initiative, and we need to do that. So what are you looking at regarding, let's say, administrators? What are you looking at there as far as percentages are concerned? Because
4% for administrators, which includes directors and principals and supervisors. Yeah.
Okay, so, and then you're looking at 4.
Correct.
All right. What did the board do for them last year?
It was 3% last year.
It was 3 last year?
Correct.
So that'd be an increase of 1. That's good. And if you could do more, that would be wonderful. And you're sitting over there cringing, I know, but
Yes.
But we want you to make a valiant effort to do everything you can. Then we will discuss the central administration staff at a later date. The classified people, as far as what we did for them last year, and I know that there was an increase on the hourly pay.
Correct.
So what are we looking at for the classified for next year?
Last year, if you all remember, it was because of the minimum wage increase, so it was a full dollar for every classified employee, which cost the district almost more than $400,000. What I'm looking at right now for this coming school year will be to fix for once the classified salary schedule. As you remember, because of the minimum wage increase, suddenly a few years ago, everybody was pile up on that salary schedule. Everybody making $11 an hour, $10.50 back then. So what I'm looking at right now is just basically fix the salary schedule the way it was before all of this started. So there's going to be a variance because of the categories and of those positions. Some people are going to get different amounts. What I'm looking at least the minimum for that minimum wage that is not going to increase from $12 is just probably everybody getting 25 cents an hour there. But according to all of the other positions, different people are going to get different amounts. But once we do that, it's going to be established a new classified salary schedule, which will be fixed moving forward. So then the following year, we can just go and do whatever amount we want for everybody at the same time, like 25 cents or 50 cents an hour, whatever is decided in the future. But my goal this year will be to fix that classified salary schedule and get it fixed once and for all, and move forward from there. I'm kind of projecting that it's going to cost around $250,000 for the classified increases.
Okay, you're working those numbers now,
Yes,
right? You're working
yes.
them all.
Yes.
You're working.
I'm
all
going to
of them.
work for different scenarios,
No.
like you said, 5%, 6%
Because
for the teachers.
we don't want to be left behind and get into a situation where we're having to address something because of the situation in a frenzied mode where we make bad decisions. We want to make good decisions. That's the reason we want you to be working and you be way ahead of what we're doing. I also want to acknowledge on behalf of the board that, of course, as you know, we have a fiscal responsibility to the
Correct.
taxpayer, and we're not going to do anything that's going to impinge or encroach on their interests either.
Correct.
We're going to do what we can, which is fair to the taxpayer, but also fair to our employees, okay? All right, good. Members of the board, do you have any comments regarding any of that, the budget or anything else that was discussed regarding the finances? Okay, do you have anything else? that you
Yes,
wanted on this on
just on contracts, our attorney is providing us the language to our contracts by this Friday, by tomorrow. And so as soon as we have
Different
verified
scenarios.
numbers, obviously we need to bring that to the board to approve the salary raises, right, Mr. Brain?
Right.
Before we issue the contracts, because what I don't want to happen, which happened one year, is that our HR staff issued contracts with the amount that we knew, like the amount that we had at that point, but then we were able to do
Give
raises a little bit afterwards, so that what they had to do was issue a contract rider after the board approved that amount after the first contract was issued. So I want to avoid that extra work. Our next board meeting is being recommended to be changed to
21st.
April 21st at 10 a.m. due to the fact that our benefits proposal, our health benefits insurance, we've had to go for best and final offer, and we will be presenting that, and that won't be ready by April 7th. So we're recommending that we have at least 2 more weeks to get all that finalized. So hopefully by then, that date, we would have already had final numbers. But I'm having Mr. Nunez review the deadline date for issuance of contracts. It used to be April 15th, but I think things changed. So he's reviewing that information. Because if we do have a date that contracts must go out prior to the April 21st, then we'll have to have a special board meeting just to approve the raises so that contracts can go out.
Yeah, that's the reason I said we don't want to get in a mode
Yes.
where we're trying to operate and figure things out
Yes.
in a frenzied manner. That's why, and we don't want to have to do that and issue a rider. So, Mr. Soto, he's well aware of
Yes, and
what's
we've
going
been,
on.
Cesar and I have been talking, and we'll be meeting probably next week in detail to go over the numbers he's proposing and figures. And I've been asked by DEA already when our contract's going to be issued out, and I gave that answer as soon as we have numbers confirmed, and we know the guideline of the date, then we're going to issue them accordingly.
And then, of course, with that epiphany that you gave the employees, we want to give you the same one on behalf of the board, that you and your staff don't work yourselves to death either. We know these are very, very tough times. These are uncharted
Yes.
waters. I mean, nobody's ever been here before, and this is really a new experience for any superintendent in the state, to be honest with you. So thank you, and thank your staff. And if you need anything, the board, I'm sure, would be available again in this manner. And,
Actually, what we would need, anybody hearing, we need laptops for every child in Douglas. So we need to contact people that has the funding to provide laptops, because this situation really put us in a situation that we wish we would be able to provide a laptop to every student. And so I have Mrs. Cox had some money left over in some of the title money, so she's ordering laptops. Mr. Durazo was looking at any extra dollars that he had within his budget to also order more laptops. But hopefully with this situation, we will find those individuals that can provide us free to our district. So if you have any contacts, send them my way. Give me their number, and I will reach out to them. We're trying to do anything possible.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much again. Thank you, members of the board, for being available. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So, Mr. Brain?
Yes.
Mr. Brain,
Yes.
I just would like to say something that I think the board should offer our condolences to Minnie, because I think her brother passed away.
Oh my! I didn't know.
Yes, that is correct. We have one of our employees, Mene Gomez, who just a few days ago lost her brother, and also Mr. Quiñones, Fernando Quiñones and Gemma Quiñones lost a nephew, and this was Rudy Quiñones, who passed away last year, a year and a half ago. His son also passed away this week.
Thank you for that, Dr. Gomez, and we certainly will pass those condolences on to the staff, and I'm sure the administration has already done that as well. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
by Mr. Sabal,
Second.
by Dr. Ed. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.